Welcome to our webinar today, Trust During Crisis, Building Lasting Working Relationships. My name is Chris Tuttle, and I work with nonprofits to help them develop and implement digital strategy that is going to be more effective in raising awareness, increasing engagement with our constituents, and ultimately cultivating meaningful actions that will drive and push our mission forward. And I'm incredibly excited about today's guest because she's one of my favorite people, Kishshana Palmer. Welcome.
Hey, y'all. Hey. I'm so glad to see folks are still pouring in. Chris, thank you for having me. Friends, I am a trainer, a strategist, and focus coach, and it's quietly held secret, Chris, that I'm a recovering fundraiser. And I help companies and organizations and the people that lead them growing your skills, your teams, and getting good results. And I've been so fortunate to have helped now thousands. I have to figure out, I need to do like an exact tally, Chris, of clients and students, both in person and online, increase their management skills, move up in their careers, grow their organizations, and keep their sanity while doing it. We all need a little bit more of that, right? So I'm so excited to hang out with you today.
Likewise. Real quick, before we jump into the topic today, this is one of multiple webinars that I and amazing colleagues have been hosting over the last couple of weeks, trying to provide some free resources and support to nonprofits during this time. Some of the other webinars that were already hosted in the last couple of weeks have been recorded and are all going to be available at everydaynonprofits.com, a new website and resource for organizations just like yours. I'll talk a little bit more about that resource at the end of the session today. If you've already attended a session before and been there and you're wondering where your invite is, it is coming either tomorrow or Friday. We're dealing with a couple technical issues right before we launch, but we'll get you all of these recordings, all of the slides, all of the free resources we've been promising you, all just by having attended today or signing up at everydaynonprofits.com. So today we're going to talk through first what we know and what we don't know. I'd just like to set the stage real quick about where we are as, especially a nation here in the United States, but really globally, where a lot of us are dealing with right now. We'll also talk about some of the challenges of working in our new remote world, especially as it relates to working with our colleagues and developing and maintaining healthy working relationships, and of course, maintaining and building trust. I think one of, at least something I've heard and seen from a lot of folks is something that's incredibly difficult to do with distance sometimes. So let's dive right into the what we know and what we don't know. And we're going to keep this short for those of you who may have already seen this in a different webinar, but I just want to set the stage on where we're at. We are in an unprecedented time, especially here in the United States. We have the highest unemployment rate in US history, the worst economic downturn in US history, and the largest drop in the US stock market, the greatest number of people working from home. And I do want to clarify, we aren't really working from home here. We are trying to work during a crisis while sheltering in place at home. Mm-hmm. And that is a much different thing than working from home. With all of this though, there's some things that we already know, some things that have already come out from research that's already been done here in the United States and elsewhere. And I think some of these things can help us understand both where our constituents are at, but also where our employees and our colleagues are at, our partners are at. These are largely felt worries and fears and concerns and really anxieties that folks are having around the country related to what's happening today. We also know that, advanced too quickly there. We also know that everyday life has changed. And part of that is just the things that we used to do, going to the office or taking the subway or our car somewhere or going to the store. It's all just changed. But it also means that our staff and our constituents are also dealing with different things in their daily lives and having to try to adjust to these changes. Adding on top of this, we're all at home, a lot of us sheltering in place, sometimes with family members and others. And so the way that we are interacting online is also changing. We're seeing a much greater increase in some types of usage, especially around gaming online. Mobile use is actually up at home. We're seeing some desktop use is actually declining slightly recently. And we're seeing that certain social sites like Facebook and local news outlets are seeing a huge increase in viewership and attention, while some specialty websites or content areas are actually seeing a slight decline in attention. So this is again to say that the way that we all interact with technology is also changing, and that's true for our employees as well. We also see this in the way that we work together. So you probably have seen this on the news already, but Zoom and Microsoft Team usage has skyrocketed. Zoom usage, you'll see here on both of these graphs, you'll see the blue bars are the active number of people who are logging in. The bars on the right are the first weeks in the month of March. And you'll see also the yellow graph, which will show you the amount of data that's being accessed. And what you're really seeing by that is you're seeing that everyone's on video right now, just like this, that folks are doing these video calls via all these different services, and it's taking up more bandwidth online as well. We also know some things have not changed. So there are 10% of US homes around the country in the United States that do not have internet as of yesterday, before this all happened. That hasn't changed. They still don't have internet today. Either they don't have it because it's inaccessible to their home based on where it is, or they don't use it for one reason or another. And so I think so often this is interesting to me as I've worked with nonprofits and already heard that this is also a challenge for some of their staff who may not have internet or reliable internet, or who are using hotspots on their mobile phone that's not going to be sufficient for accessing the work computer and whatnot, or the work servers. We also know that another thing that hasn't changed is that nonprofits have previously not really prioritized technology. And this has been done from different surveys over the years. Those nonprofits that have prioritized technology have actually been doing a little bit better during this crisis, but they're still challenged as well, of course. Folks who may have had computer desktops at work now have at home using personal computers. And what does that mean for access to like donor data or employee HR records being accessed from people's personal computers? We also know that something that hasn't changed is that our constituents still want to hear from us. I would add on to that, and this topic today is often about our colleagues and partnerships, that our colleagues also want to hear from us and need to hear from our organizations as well. This is a study IPSOS did in China that came out, or was done, excuse me, during January while they were going through sheltering in place that was very similar to what we are going through in the United States during March. And I'll share some more data that was revealed from that research. So some things that we don't know. We don't know how long this is going to last. We do know this is not going to be over quickly. And we know that we're going to see the effects of this long term, both economically and also for our organizations. We know that when we look at the different models, like the examples that are shared here on the right, those darker models are the most reliable models to date of what could possibly happen as seasons change, as we might see social distancing rules and guidelines relaxed over the summer slightly. And so I think it's important for us as organizations to also think of this as not like just managing a crisis right now, and not just how are we building our better relationships and our working relationships with our staff right now and today. It's also how are we going to do it for the next 3 months, the next 6 months, and the next 12 months, even as we return possibly back to offices. Some things that we can also look to for answers, because there's a lot of unknowns in there. But some things that we can look to kind of get an idea of what might be happening is one around the economic downturn and the effects financially for nonprofits like ours. Steve McLaughlin, one of my favorite people who knows everything about data and fundraising for nonprofits, works at Blackballed, author of Data-Driven Nonprofits. You'll see the chart here on the right. This is actually from the 2009 recession. And so that big dip you see here, there is the recession. The darker line are the number of donors, while, I'm sorry, the darker line is the financial revenue, the income, the donations. The lighter line is the number of donors. And basically what they found is that existing supporters who had a strong relationship with your organizations were more likely to stay around longer during an economic downturn. Whereas one-time, single-time donors who were newer or had lapsed already were less likely to re-engage or continue supporting the organization during an economic downturn. But most organizations didn't feel the economic downturn until about 4 months after the recession began. This is a little bit different right now. We're in a different type of crisis than just a recession, but still interesting information that I think we can look to and as some idea of what might be happening now. And we also saw that those long-term supporters stayed with the organization and came back and kept financially giving once the financial system improved. We also know we can look at your data. So one of the things I've started looking at with all the clients we work with is looking through their website data and their social media analytics to see how user behavior is changing. And I started doing this because I noticed getting some alerts from some websites that we were getting increased traffic on Sundays that we didn't used to get in the past. And what I've basically seen in different sites, as we see here in the graph, is that we've seen some spikes in certain websites' traffic on Sundays and Mondays, much higher than they used to get on those days. And we've seen a sharp decline in web traffic on Fridays and Saturdays, sometimes even Thursdays. Different websites have different experiences here. And you'll also notice if you look at the hours by day report on your website, that folks who might be accessing your website at different times of the day they didn't used to. Some of my organizations are seeing more people on later in the evening than they used to, and they're seeing people on less often early in the morning like they used to. This is all because what's happening to all of us is changing. The way that we operate, the way that we interact, and when we have time to do certain things. Couple last slides here. Number 3, some things that we can look for to answers are medical and economic experts. When we look at the experts, and I've collected some of their data here on this calendar below, we already know that the federal government is advising no large groups, that's any groups of more than 50 people, or, excuse me, that's the CDC. The federal government has us on social distancing right now until the end of April. The CDC advises no large group in-person meetings of 50 or more, or 10 or more people who have compromised immune systems or from other communities who are at risk, at high risk. That extension goes on through at least May 10th. And that first federal warning through April 30th was already extended once. So we know that these are going to prevent physical gatherings in our organizations at least till June. We also know that there's ongoing industry things happening in the events industry, especially around large concerts, large conferences, where events are already being canceled throughout the rest of the year, largely through the summer, some of them being rescheduled for the fall with hopes that we can maintain this or somehow deal with this by then. But some of them, especially around entertainment, are actually just rescheduling for 2021 right now or looking for online options. So I can look at actually Pride events in DC, in LA, have all been canceled for June already. And then finally, that IPSOS research that I was talking about that was done in China during January while they were on lockdown. This is some of the most fascinating research I've seen so far out about this, because it clearly showed without a doubt that people want to hear from brands. And they want to hear from brands for a few different reasons. Some of them just want to be distracted from everything that's going on in life and feel some sense of normalcy. Some of them actually still are interested in certain things, like particularly brands they might be able to access while they're at home remotely or even order from. And others actually felt brands had a role to play in how communities respond and how we all respond to this crisis. The biggest thing I think is a good takeaway for me from this is the mentions of the feelings that people said they want brand advertising and communications to help them or make them feel. And you can see in this grouping of some of those responses that it's largely around positive messaging and security. People want to feel positivity right now, and they want to feel secure and safe. That's right. And I think this is something that we can take with us as we think through not only our organization's communications with our constituents and the public, but also like how we're communicating with and engaging and supporting our staff. So with that kind of shared knowledge, leveling our understanding of everything going on right now, I want to welcome Kish back. Sorry, I'm going to call you Kish. Is that okay?
Of course.
Kishshana. Kishshana and I've actually met about a year ago, I think.
Yeah.
And so I've actually had the amazing pleasure of, I think, listening to you talk a couple of times now in person and twice now on webinars. And every time I learn something new from you. So thank you for being here today to talk about building trust when we are terrified.
Absolutely. And you know, Chris, when I was listening to you walk through the stats, I was like, ooh, slow down a minute. Wait, hold on. Let me get in my notes. So I was taking some notes, y'all, because actually the data that we're seeing, particularly that last slide when it talked about, which I think is so fascinating, about what people want to see from brands, I believe is actually really reflective of what we want to see from each other. So if you just hold that for a second. So when I look at the color grid and I see enjoyment, if you look at, first of all, I did a Biz Bestie edition of the Don't Rush Challenge. I think we rushed it too much. That's what I get for doing stuff when I'm not well. But I didn't want to be left out. So we have the enjoyment factor is high. We want to do fun things with our friends. We actually want to do fun things with our colleagues, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. What it really brings to the forefront for me is that we want to take a second, just a beat, to kind of slow down and to really kind of enjoy things. And enjoyment looks different for different people, but what is clear in these stats is that we have a responsibility to each other to offer aid. So you see how I'm taking off company and I'm inserting people. We're interested in hearing from each other around ways that can help us navigate this crisis. We want to continue to hear from each other on what we have to offer one another. So if you even look at offerings, and if you look at the word choices that brands are using, that influencers, if they're smart, are using, and that organizations can be using around the offer, right? Like the handout version of that, because what it is a time to really be in relationship. And I saw a Medium article this morning about parents not being okay. And I laughed because I wrote a blog post called I'm a 3-hour mama about a year and a half ago that blew up. People were like, Kishshana just said she's a 3-hour mama. Yes, between the hours of 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. I'm the bomb.com. Okay, I will drop my kid off at somebody's play date. Thank God she's in high school now because just take the bus. You know, like it's So what was funny to me was one of the moms who has an 8-year-old, my daughter's in high school now, y'all, so the most she's doing at this point is getting on my nerves because she's going from the couch to her bedroom to staring for long hours on the darn phone or the iPad. That's a different webinar, Chris. My point is, one of the moms wrote, I feel seen, because the article talked about the fact that, like, actually it's not a privilege to be home with these kids. And I thought it was such, I mean, the author acknowledged her privilege. She acknowledged that lots of people can't even say that. She really anchored her writing in that, so I appreciated that. But if in that little bit in the sandwich on two sides of the acknowledgement bun, I had to laugh because what the comments moms were saying, and some dads were saying, was that they felt seen. And so when we think about relationships, we want to be seen. And we want to know that there is someone who we don't have to spell it out for them to anticipate or to respond to something that we would want, you know? And so you can move forward to the next slide, Chris, thank you. And so this idea about building trust when we're terrified really means that there is an exercise both in vulnerability and in taking that Windex and cleaning off that glass. Because when you can't see what you think you want to see, that's us working together at work, that's time on task, that's FaceTime in the office, that's who shows up to the meeting, that's going out for lunch, that's avoiding going out for lunch, right? All the things that we, because right, that happens too, Chris. That's you. You're like, oh, you want to go for a salad? All right, give me 20, you know, and you're like, never to be seen again. And then you send the text, sorry guys, can't come, just order me a salad. We can't even do that. We don't even have the choice right now to avoid people. So building trust right now, when we get into the place where we just want to do what is safe for us, we go back to our homogenous groups. And if you're at work, whatever your crew was, if you had one that you don't get to interface with regularly, now you're trying to figure out how to interface differently. And now all of a sudden, Betty, who you only had to talk to at staff meeting once in a while, now y'all are on Zoom 5 times a week. And you're like, what is happening with my life right now? So how do you build out this trust? And I think it really comes down to that basis, that foundation, y'all, of recognizing that ultimately in relationships, whether they're love relationships or their work relationships, or their relationships you're building with your children, which tend to be a blend both of work and of love, or with your parents if you're a caregiver, really comes down to, am I doing the things that help that person feel seen and heard? And am I doing the things so that I also feel seen and heard? And I think that's something that's so critical that we don't think about enough when we're at work, because oftentimes we're just trying to get the work done. So Chris, one of the things that has been really big, I've seen a lot of this and I experienced this week with some client meetings, is that at the beginning of every call, and we did it today, folks are checking in. How you doing? How you doing? Now, normally, y'all, check-ins when we do this on regular meetings, BC, before COVID, when a little something like this. Hey, y'all, ding, ding. The meeting keeps coming on. Hey, ding, ding. Y'all good? Hey, good. Hey, good good to see you, Bob. Hey, good to see you. And then we just jump into the agenda. So we're used to treating how are you doing like a salutation, like hi, hey, what's up? And now that things are actually pretty serious for lots of folks, taking that beat in a public forum is super off, y'all. Like, it's like, I don't really want to discuss my feelings right now because I'm about to cry. So can we just move on? I'm turning off this camera. And furthermore, we're bringing people into our homes, Chris. Y'all, you know you're bringing people into your home. Some of you bringing people into your bedroom. We don't want to see your sheets. Can you at least make the bed? Okay? But you're bringing people into your homes. And think about the irony of this, Chris. For organizations that have privacy SOPs in place, right? So those of y'all who have, like, you have your laptop, and look, right now, one of my clients sent me a laptop today. It's labeled. Can y'all see that? They got the tag on the back. I mean, there's so many things going on. They got, you know, passwords and thumbprints and all of these things for privacy and making sure that we're technologically secure, which I love. But what about my technological security of my at-home privacy? What if I don't want y'all in my living room? What if I wasn't trying to build a relationship? What if I didn't want you to know that I don't vacuum? You know, or that the laundry does sit in 3 baskets all week and we just pick it and then we just start again. Like, we don't, so there's an additional layer that we're introducing in terms of relationship that we're not even thinking about around privacy, et cetera, as we come into this online environment. If any of y'all can identify with this even a little bit, I want y'all to come on, get your keyboard fingers happy. I'm gonna see this chat going. Tell me, Kishshana, that I'm not the only one, okay? Don't leave me out here by myself. I already know Chris agrees with me, so don't leave me by myself. Yes, Amy, tell me yes, okay? I don't want y'all in my business. That's right, Allie. I do not want you in my business. Yes, Amy, you're related to my 3-hour mom post. Send these kids back, okay? And I gotta deal with you coworkers. I don't really like y'all that much. Okay, and so we're just being honest. So how do we, oh, look, Bernice said, I want to wear my bonnet. Bernice, let me tell you what, let me release you, friend. This is my bonnet. Y'all see it? Okay, in the evening time, I haven't undone my twist in 4 days. Let me tell y'all another secret, friend, about building. Can we build a relationship now, Chris? Is that okay if I can build it with folks?
Absolutely, yes.
Building relationships has to do with just a teaspoon of vulnerability. I'm gonna talk about that in honesty. I haven't undone my twists in a week. I only undo my twists on the weekends to wash it and retwist it so my hair does not lock. Okay, that's it. Pure vanity. Other than that, this is what y'all are gonna get on every video until this bad boy lets us back out to the grand opening of Outside. Then I will do my hair. Okay, back to that. So Bernice, just put a little edge control on your bonnet and then let it rock. Okay, just, they're gonna get what they can get. Katarina says, agreed, and I keep having to move from room to room, so they're seeing so much of my house. Right. Like, I didn't invite y'all to my house for regular cocktail, and now we have to have Zoom cocktails? This is a mess. So friends, when we are trying to build trust, when we are terrified, what we're not naming is that there are so many personal moving pieces that are in play while we're trying to do work, while we're trying to keep our teams together, particularly for my people managers, while we're trying to show up. Let me not say it's my best self, because I don't know if you're even getting my best self today. You might get my best self in a couple of months. While we're just trying to live. Chris, you put it the best. She said, we are not working from home. We are at the house during a pandemic, trying to get some work done, we hope. Like, that's it. And so Amber says, I feel bad for the people who don't want to be on video, but are made to feel bad because others prefer it. And I want to talk to the people who are leading those meetings. Maybe I will write about that this week, because from a trust building perspective, we have to allow folks to still be who they are. And I am always encouraging in order to build a good trusting relationship, if your circle of trust, you know, think about the Fockers, meet the Fockers. So if you think about your circle of trust, I'm always encouraging you at work just to ease it just a little bit, just to open up. See how I didn't open it up all the way, y'all? Just a little bit. And so if you don't want to be on screen all the time, that should be a choice you get to make. Let me tell you what you don't get to do when you're both off the screen. Then you don't get then write all your thoughts in the chat, never comment out loud, and then say, but I left my thoughts in the meeting. You did not, okay? You gave color commentary just like people do when they're watching Guess What's Happening Live, like, you know, like
creating a hashtag.
Exactly, creating a hashtag. So when you think about relationships, you go to the next slide. there are a couple of things that I want you to be keeping in mind. Even in the best of times, we kind of, sort of, and some of us always do what we know. That's how we're designed. We are creatures of habit. This is why this is so wild right now at work and at home, because all of the articles and the blog posts, even me, are telling you, reach for a routine, reach for something that you can hold on to. I was talking to my mom about that this morning. I said, Mom, I haven't heard you write a word. And she was like, I'm overwhelmed. All right, I'm gonna try. I was like, reach for something that feels familiar to you, because oftentimes that's what we do. Okay, I'm checking the chat. You can make a generic background for your Zoom so that people can't see behind you. Let me tell you, mine would be of like bare naked ladies, okay? Like I would be just ridiculous and disgusting. Just don't,
There are actually some really great points in there though, and that there are those virtual backgrounds for folks who do want to hide a little bit. I also really loved Holly's statement about you could also stage a bookcase behind you and put some questionable materials to have a little fun with it.
Would be hilarious. First of all, the materials would move every day. Like I mean, that's just, I'm a jokester. So Holly, I'm with you. I'm like, oh, you want me to be on camera against my will? Great. And so, the people are showing up in the ways that they're retreating into their comfort. And so when you're building trust, maintaining trust, and even restoring trust, dare I say, because right before we had to shelter in place, some of us were not getting along at work. Right, Chris? Like some of us.
Actually, I would love to ask you about that, because I think that's something I have heard. I've heard from folks I work with already that, oh, we're having, my dog is coming in the background.
Right.
This is working from home, right?
That's it. The dog is like, you ignore me today.
That's hysterical. He has not done that yet. But what I have heard though is that trust wasn't necessarily there before this happened. So I feel like there's an added layer of not even just building trust, maintaining trust. It's often still building it for the first time for some folks.
And for some folks, restoring it. Like I have talked to some clients over the last 2 weeks, some coaching clients who had a total fallout with a peer on another team prior to this happening, and now they are literally having to work together all the time. But now they're like keyboard warriors. Okay, the emails are scathing. Like I was reading an email and I was like, I'm sorry, you didn't press send when you sent this out, did you? People, the screenshot ministry is serious, right? Like okay. So
what was your advice to them?
I told them to pick up that phone. Let me tell you what, if someone sends me an email that I know is going to make all of my baby hair stand up on edge and make me want to get some Vaseline and go real 1992 Queens, New York, like I pick up the phone, take a breath, I go for a walk, and I come back and I say, hey, I would love to grab 10 minutes of your time for us to have a quick touch point on the phone. Not even on video. I'm not even doing that to you. I'm just going to hear the soothing sound of my voice. I got your email. This is what I told her to do. I got your email, and I just sent you back a response that if I received that response, I would be incensed right now. So I wanted to just pick up the phone and call you, because I think in translation, I just misunderstood what was happening. And because I know writing typically doesn't have any context, like, let's just talk about it. And so that's my first point there, giving yourself grace and then extending it to others when you're thinking about relationships. So notice what I said. I got up first and I went and took a walk. I had to just go. So I told her, before you pick up that phone, just like we're taught, particularly if you're in communications, if you're a fundraiser, if you're in any kind of donor client facing relationship, before you pick up the phone and talk, even before you type, you got to put a smile on your face, have good music, because it brings all of those muscles up. And you see how you just sound nicer and brighter when you have that conversation? You got to do the same thing when you're about to cut somebody out, okay? And so you have to go take a walk, talk to yourself, encourage yourself, okay? And you come back and you assume, that's right, Kelsey, you assume that good intent. And you say, hey, I just want to touch base, just kind of hear each other's voice on that. If you haven't sent that note yet, you can say something as simple as, I started to write you a note. And then I realized it would be probably better for us if I just picked up the phone. so you can just give me some context on where you were from before I respond. Is that all right? Now, you're not really like looking for permission, but what you're doing in that is you're giving that person some space. And if they're like, now's not a good time, then you have to say, I totally get it. I really don't want to let this linger on into the week. And so when would be a better time for you and I to talk about it? I don't want to take this back to email, and I won't. So you get to create that boundary. And so giving yourself grace and then extending it to others, assuming that good intent, like Kelsey said in the chat, is super important around building relationships and around trying to maintain that trust and even restoring the trust, starting with good intent. If we had more time, I would talk about the fact that oftentimes when we're in organizations and we're thinking about different marginalized groups, that some groups get more grace and some groups get less grace. Off top, but we're not gonna go there today, okay? But just, I wanna name it that it exists in the world so that y'all think Kishshana is not just going around with dandelions and crab cake, okay? Because that's what I'm dreaming of right now, having a good crab cake. So the second thing is in being consistent. So I tell my daughter all the time that character and integrity are the things that you are building when no one is looking. And so when I tell her that because I want her to make choices for herself that aren't predicated on the reaction or response of other people, of external stuff. And so when I talk about being consistent, what I mean for you is the way that you are showing up in the world to bring some self-awareness with you, but be a person of your word. Be consistent when you say you're going to do something and follow through. Own up to it if you overcommit. Offer that mea culpa. Be consistent with the way you show up with people, and people who are for you, who like the way you operate, because everybody's not going to be your friend. Your work friends will respect that, but it just allows you to be able to go, listen, if I can't count on anything else, Chris is consistent. That is a heck of a compliment when somebody says that. You're like, nothing else. You are consistent. Bernice says, I feel like some schedule Zoom calls to show their work, even when it could be an email. Yes. And I feel like the responsible thing to do, depending on where you sit, Bernice, in your organization's hierarchy, is to name it. And what I mean by that is post-meeting, I would like to, if I'm peer-to-peer, I'm going to have a conversation with my peer. Like, hey, our day is hectic enough between the dog, the kids, the parent ringing, the phone ringing, God forbid you have somebody who's sick, this and that, just your own body going through a 24-hour cycle of fight or flight. Our bodies, our limbic systems don't even know what to do right now. So at any given point of the day, we are cycling through something. So if that's my peer, I'm having that peer-to-peer conversation. If that's my manager, I'm going to have that conversation and I'm going to say, look, you know, I've been reading up on this, but the limbic system is a really good one to talk about. And I just want to name that it would probably be healthier. Notice the words I'm using, y'all. Healthier over time if we kept meetings for opportunities for us to wrangle, to discuss, to dig into, to problem solve, and we kept emails for information updates.
I like that.
Because I've noticed that folks are worn out by Thursday.
Yes.
And so nothing gets done on Friday. Like, just, Chris, isn't that just naming it?
Yeah, it's
and
naming it. It's actually
clients, just being able to say, like, look.
Yeah, I saw that in the data. We're seeing that people are using the internet less. They're checking their emails less on Fridays. I think we're all exhausted by the end of the week.
Exhausted by the end of the week. I made a suggestion based on a Facebook post that I saw one of my Facebook friends write, that one of the creative ways we can offer, and this to me is a very great relationship building, like a global team building way to release people from Fridays. Half a day, just like we do summer Fridays, it just needs to be summer Fridays, self-care Fridays, freedom Fridays, call it whatever you want to call it, but releasing people from the idea of having to do more because we're already operating sort of frantically and working more hours now anyway. And if you have little people at home, you're doing your pocket here and your pocket there and your pocket. If you don't have little people at home, you're wandering off. You're doing more because you feel guilty because of your colleagues that have little people at home, and so you're doing more. So everybody is operating. Amy says, "Love seeing the Thursday Friday data. I know I was feeling it. Glad I'm not alone." Absolutely. So that comes to my third point about offering a tablespoon of vulnerability daily. And so what I mean by that is that there's always this encouragement for leaders to be vulnerable. But everybody doesn't get to see all the layers of your onion. Onion's smelly. Maybe I just want a little outside. I just want a little blooming onion. I don't want to get the chopped. And so what I mean by a tablespoon every day is just a little bit. And so if someone asks you how you're doing and you look and you realize, oh, I have a window of space to actually talk about it, I might say, you really want to know? And pause. Like, yeah, I really want to know. And let them know. And then thank them for giving you that space. Or if you come into a meeting and you're not prepared, or you come into a one-on-one with a team member and you don't have the things you wanted to do, or you know you're going to walk into a group setting and you don't quite have the things, tablespoon of vulnerability. Don't wait until the 11 o'clock hour to start having that conversation, right, Chris? Like, pick up the phone. I'm big for that. Send the text. I don't even bother with the email at that point. And say, listen, we're about to have this. I am not ready. I need another hour. Or it'd be so much better if I can pick this up with you again tomorrow. None of us work in the emergency room. And many of our missions are not frontline in the ways that in today's climate. They're urgent and they're critical work. But if the meeting today can happen tomorrow, unless it's a grant deadline, in which case I would pick up the phone and also call the funder. It might be to tomorrow. So that's just what I mean by like that just a tablespoon, just enough. So folks know, you know, they're human, they're breathing over there. You know, y'all didn't eat today. So on my calendar now are lunch breaks. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say that I found a connection between your third point here around vulnerability and giving yourself grace. The first one. And that even Elizabeth, I think, shared earlier in the chat room that she almost broke down in a staff check-in when asked how she's doing and how it can be so difficult. And you know, full true story here, my vulnerability. Kishshana asked me how I was feeling when we started talking, and I'm like, I'll cry if I talk about it. Like there's a lot going on right now personally. And so I found that with my team and with my colleagues who I'm working with, that when I am vulnerable and share some of those things that are going on, it reminds me that they also have things they're not necessarily sharing with me that are going on and impacting their ability to get work done.
Absolutely.
And I think there's grace around that, or there can be.
Absolutely. So you are so right, Chris. I love that. I'm like, that's the marketing guru in you.
It's me learning from you and listening to you. Oh my gosh,
no. And then the next thing is like just playing nice in the virtual sandbox. So we can get real mean, real fast when there's not that face-to-face accountability. And so making sure that when we're creating documents, that we're sharing them with the right folks, that we're giving proper context, that if we're going to be able to start to do new projects, not everybody is in like just survival mode. There are organizations right now that are like just they have to rethink and they have to pivot the what, but they're getting some stuff done. And so in thinking about virtual teams and thinking about, there are some teams and some managers who they are operational folks and they like their documents done. So they came into this virtual environment pretty well set up. Then there are other folks like me, y'all, who put things on the sticky notes. Okay, I'm telling all my business. And so I was like, oh, I can't just bring my big notebook that my team is used to seeing into the conference room and know that somebody else is going to take notes. I need to take notes. Okay. And so being able to, I'm not going to ever be as clear as my operations manager who has every document done. I don't even, by the time we leave a meeting, everything is already set up for the next thing. I'm like, oh, okay, that's impressive. That's not me. But from a relationship building perspective, I know that that's her strength. And so I think about what I need to do to set her up well so she can do her job. And so what I mean by playing nice in the sandbox is just making sure you're not going in and ruining people's stuff. And also that you're trying to at least understand what the baseline is of your technological tools and then taking the time to get to learn them. So for example, y'all, I want to shut off this weekend completely, but I looked at my work schedule for the rest of the week. And given that I have to rest, excuse me, for a couple of hours in the middle of the day every day now, because I'm still recovering from having COVID, that means I'm going to have to work on the weekend. I mean, ain't nowhere to go. Not like I have plans. But what I'm going to be doing is learning a new software system because I have to be able to plug into a particular client on Monday. And so I'm not going to be like, oh gosh, I asked what are the webinars or the tutorials that will get me nimble and dangerous, not expert level, just working knowledge. I got what those are. That's what I'll do. So when I say about playing in the virtual sandbox, it's etiquette on email. It's making sure we're loving on folks, saying thank you, saying please, our basic pleasantries, but also in leveraging the technology that we have and making sure that you are not still in the camp of, well, I don't do it that way. Listen, friends, we don't have that choice right about now, okay? It's the thing that will help all of our minds to be at ease. Remember I said, when we go for the familiar, when we're using the same types of tools, when we're addressing things in a particular fashion, when we're actually honoring SOPs, etc. So that's what I'm talking about in that. And then I talked about naming it already. And then that last two things, co-creating routines is really big for me, Chris. And the reason it's big for me is because oftentimes we just want to just, the leader of that team, the manager, however your organization is set up around who creates your routines, they're set by a manager or leader. And then the team is like, they either do it or they like passively aggressively don't do it. From a relationship building, from a trust building perspective, I like to co-create with my teams. Here's our week. Here's what we've got to get accomplished. Here's some things that I think work well. So I like to have I think of my bumper rails when my daughter was learning to bowl. I was like, I did not have these bumper rails when I was learning to bowl as a kid. I was like, this is ridiculous. What in the mediocrity hell is this? Okay, sorry. There's another story, y'all, for another day. It's another story. So you think about the bumper rails, I like to, as a manager, create a framework for how I think routines should go. But when we're thinking now in this environment that we're in, creating some routines together and using that team time, using that webinar time to have some discussions, to pull up some documents, to pull up something we found on the interwebs and to talk about it. And then to say, okay, based on what we're seeing here, we can delete all these darn meetings on the calendar and let's co-create some new routines that work for us now. We know who has kids, who doesn't have kids. We know who are caregivers, who don't have caregivers. We know, at least me as a manager, I might not know your private business, but I do know your personal stuff. And I think there's a difference in terms of that relationship and that trust. You don't have to get into privacy is the details. The personal is understanding what's happening that at the top. And so really being able to understand and navigate the personal means that you get the opportunity with your team to co-create norms that respect and value that we're going to work differently for a little while. Yeah. I think the challenge we have, Chris, a lot of times is that we think because we have the tome from HR that holds us to the things we have to do. No, the HR typically doesn't tell you how to work. It tells you what things you're not supposed to do, but not the how. And so you get to create that. And that, I think, is a huge trust building activity. What do you think, Chris, about that one?
Oh, I absolutely agree. I'm hearing you say it inherently in this idea that we're co-creating it. But I also think it's being flexible in how those routines are created and how we work with our teams. As you're talking, I'm thinking about like my team and how we've had to change things. And we're having more shorter group check-ins more often, but shorter, in part because they asked for that. And we've changed the times around of when we have them because we want to accommodate everyone's schedules and their various needs. And we're also, like, I'm thinking through how we're also changing what were routines with some of them, which I largely try to, we're a remote team already, so I largely tried to let them dictate their routines anyway. But they changed their own routines because of all of this. And they needed that flexibility. And they needed to find a way that was going to be better for them and for the best for them.
Absolutely. And listen to all that. All of you being able to release, perceive, and real control just enough to give people some elbow room. We're in a state right now where we don't feel like we have control of hardly anything. And so think about when we were kids, and I don't know about y'all, but I was a defiant teenager, y'all, okay? So what are we reaching for as teenagers mostly? Control, agency. And so if you think about building trust and you think about building relationships, how are you helping your teams to have and to exercise agency over their work schedules, and so that they can feel like they have choice? Because right now we don't have a choice about going outside of staying inside. Some people are really stressed out about the choice. So how are we able to navigate that? So I love that you said that. Okay. So then lastly, start with the why and not the what. And so why are we doing the projects we're doing right now? Why do we have the meetings we have? Why do we have the breakdowns we have? Not just that we have to keep all the ships running. Starting with that why allows for conversation as opposed to dictation. And that allows that discourse that gets folks talking and gets folks thinking and get folks, what did I say at the beginning? Feeling heard and feeling seen. That's all I have on that one. Okay, so we have some quick strategies and tips, y'all. So I didn't realize, I was like, oh, I was having so much fun. And we're almost out of time, y'all. I can't believe it. So Chris was so kind as to get the best of the internets in our thinking in this. And so this, y'all, I think you'll see repeated 11,235 times on the internet, which means it's true. Okay. So taking time with colleagues to be both personal and connect. And we talked about that quite a bit during this time. And not just checking in on how you doing with the whole, but also like, what have you done for yourself this week? Like this week I asked a colleague, I said, have you snuck out? That's what I wrote. Snuck out to get away from them kids, even for 10 minutes. And she wrote me back, I did not, but I did take off tomorrow and Friday because my house is like an episode of Hoarders. And we just connected and we had a good laugh. And I said, girl, I understand. And we moved on. But that was that personal, right? And connecting. Creating routines for both work and personal time. So for me, Google has a simple thing in our calendars, y'all, where you can say you want to do a thing. So mine was walk. And it asked me, when I did it from my phone, and it asked me how many times a week? And I was like 3 times. And it was like, how many minutes? And I was like 30 minutes. It was like, great, we will schedule it. And then it found spaces in my calendar for me between meetings to tell me to walk. And then every day it asked me, did you walk today? And I was like, first of all, Alexa, you don't know my life. And so figuring out what your routines are going to be. For me, I've changed my get up routine in the morning. I have not been able to find my way to pray in the same way, the same level of concentration and specificity. So I've released it, not praying, but the Bible app helps me. Or I have a meditation from my favorite app ever, Shine app, that helps me. I've always used the Calm app. None of these people pay me, y'all. They should, they don't. To go to sleep. And so now I use my bedtime stories more frequently than I did before. So what are your routines? I take pleasure now in making my little lunch, even though my lunch is not that fabulous. I do say lunch is on the schedule and I go and I do it and I don't bring my laptop and I'm not on a conference call. That's just my time. And I'm starting to take pleasure in those small things.
And can I add real quick that
Yeah,
I don't think routines has to be, and necessarily shouldn't be for everybody, that I'm going to start work exactly at 9 a.m. at my desk and I'm going to end exactly at 5 and Monday through Friday. I think if we're able in our organizations, this is the time to be a little bit flexible and allow, like you're saying, people to create routines that are going to be best for them.
Correct. And then relaxing some of the things that we do. So for example, another strategy is really thinking about all these work plans and stuff that we have on our deadlines. We might need to increase them by 30 days or 60. We might need to revisit them. So that if you had a plan that you were going to redo the entire backyard patio and replant all the plants, and now you're home and you're like, okay, well, I have everything sitting there, I should do it. Maybe it's going to take you all summer and not a weekend like it normally does. It just is. Limiting distractions, I think, is great. That has been really, really helpful for me in particular. I am a Gemini, y'all. I am a bouncing ball. I'm like a little kitten. The yarn, I just go. And so I don't have up social media. My phone is on silent during the day, which doesn't always help when I'm missing phone calls from clients or my mom. But it has allowed me to turn down the noise. I've turned off every alert from every news channel.
Yep.
Like all of it. The gossip and the new stuff, because it just was like a flood. And so I choose each night before I take a shower, this is what I do, that I go in and I'm like, all right, it's my 30 minutes. And I'm like in it. And I'm like, wait, I've been in it too long. Sometimes it's an hour, y'all. Okay. But then I'm done. So sometimes people will send me texts. Did you see what de Blasio, did you see what Cuomo does? No. And I'll see it later. Like it'll still be true in 2 hours. It's fine. So limiting your distractions as best as you can. And I love this one, creating ground rules with your housemates. Oh my gosh, Chris, the meme about their children as your coworkers.
Describe what your children are doing as if they're your
coworkers
coworkers.
right now. Everybody needs ground rules, okay? And so what are they in your household? What are they for yourself? You broke down the science behind what's happening, at least from the data perspective. And so I think really taking some time to understand how our bodies work, how we function, how we think about things, what our bodies are designed to do generally in up times and in down times actually is very settling for me. So that's how your mind works. Do that. And then I love spend time learning and teaching each other. So every afternoon, y'all, I've turned on Carolima's, which is a low country restaurant based in Charleston. The owner does a cooking thing every afternoon in her kitchen, in her house. Oh my gosh, y'all. I just listen to it every afternoon. I haven't even made anything yet. So thinking about things that you want to learn or do, and then continuing to set goals, no matter how small, I think is really important. And I love these last two: own our feelings and our mistakes and ask for help. That goes back to my teaspoon of vulnerability every day. Have you owned your feelings today, even to yourself? Have you been vulnerable with yourself? If you're used to being the strong friend, have you checked on yourself? You know, and owning your mistakes. You're just not going to get it right with people every day. I was really short with someone the other day, Chris, who cares about me very deeply. And he reached out to me and I was like, what? You know, and I had to call back and apologize. It took me 2 days, I want to tell y'all, but I had to call back and say, my bad. I mean that. I know you care. Thank you. And then asking for help, which is hard for me to do. And so it's been the thing that I've been able to practice the most. I've been writing out loud on my Facebook posts, et cetera, has been cathartic for me. So when you're thinking about it in a work context and thinking about it with your trusting relationships, being able to say, y'all, I need help. Press in and then back and put your hands up so that you can miss the 10-second window when you can unsend it. And allow folks to step in, because what do we want to do? We want to be seen and we want to be heard. That's what I have, Chris. I mean, I wish I had more things or deeper, but that's what I got.
It's amazingly helpful. It's actually incredibly helpful for me, even though I helped you prepare the session and saw what you were writing and adding, and I still am sitting here listening and reading and hearing you talk about this stuff, and I'm like, yes, I need to do that more. I need to be better at this. I'm doing that well. Or, oh, that's why that worked well. So I really appreciate you being here today. If you haven't had a chance to ask your questions yet, drop them into the chat room or the Q&A box, and we'll try to get to them before we jump out here today. And while you're typing those questions in, we're just going to run through a couple resources and things for you to keep helping carry you along throughout all this.
Oh my gosh, I so love the Stop Toilet Paper Hoarding. That was amazing.
Really, really well done.
Well done.
Various resources from various folks. You're going to get all these links in a slide and all the slides. So we'll get these to you in email. I will get that email out this week, and that is a commitment I am making to you. I also love that your new book is out.
Oh my gosh. So we are literally when I got an email from the printer the other day that it was available, and then I was like, wait a minute. So I confirmed, and she was like, psych, that wasn't meant for you. And I was like, what? Like the self-publishing stories that I can tell, but we're almost there. It's going to drop in early May. I'm so excited. So we're there, but it's still available for pre-order at heynewhere.com. I'm just really excited. I was like, I hope people like it, because Lord knows this thing has been longer than giving birth to a baby. Okay.
Well, and it's going to be about like how to build these relationships and how to support our new team members. And so it touches right in today's conversation. Right in today's conversation.
And then if you need more time with me for any reason, please feel free to book some time with me on my calendar at bit.ly/Kish. That takes you through all your options. You can visit my site where I have resources, both free and a little coin. And you can always connect with me on social. I've been really good about making sure I'm still being active and responsive. And so super happy to stay connected to you. David says, how long will it be when we finally see each other in the office? Can we actually hug each other again? I don't know, David. I need all the goods, all the hugs. I love it. I really
David, I will be hugging you again. I will see you at the Nonprofit Technology Conference next year in person, and we will be hugging.
Yes.
If that's okay.
Of course. It's always okay. I'm a hugger.
And then finally, from my end, we are launching Everyday Nonprofits this week. Finalize those technical issues, and we're this is a new online learning center that I've been working on for about 6 months now. Originally with a bunch of courses on doing long-term strategy planning, digital strategy, social media strategy, development, implementation. And Frankly, we were supposed to launch this about a month ago, right when everything went into lockdown, and we had to completely pivot what we were doing. The world changed, and we had to change too.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're creating a selection of webinars, for which this will be one of them, that all free memberships will have complete unlimited access to. And that includes the slides, as well as a bunch of resources that I'm giving away from my personal collection. Things like a Facebook fundraiser analyzer that will help you understand who your best Facebook fundraisers are, campaign development worksheets that help you understand how to develop a social media strategy and fundraise during this time, as well as things like a digital strategy course to help walk you through developing a strategy yourself. The premium membership is going to include even more 16 hands-on unique classes over the next year, in which we're going to talk about everything digital, including things that you need to know right now. Like how do you live stream to your Facebook page? How do you actually create campaigns that are going to work in this new environment and new world? And that's all going to be available for a low monthly membership option of $29 a month, which will also include some additional discounts for you via email. So with that, thank you all so much for joining today. If you do have to leave, let's just check and see if there's any more questions in the room before we say goodbye.
Amy had one. This different way of working seems to be pushing my introverts and extroverts to the extreme. Any ways that we can do team check-ins versus one-on-ones to try to meet them all where they are? Chris, if you have that, great.
Yeah, I actually love that you just said that. I was, that's so funny. I was just having this issue a few weeks ago now with my team, and that I was trying to manage our check-ins, which were happening, team check-ins, which were having to happen more often. And I was still maintaining one-on-ones with everybody, and it was just exhausting. And I also kind of felt like the team probably wanted or needed to talk to each other a bit more and not just individually with me, so we actually stopped doing our one-on-ones. We do our one-on-ones as far as like updates on specific projects. We do in software and via email now. If we need to talk through something, we just get on the phone, get on a Zoom all of a sudden, and we just talk it out. But it's our group check-ins that are happening 2 or 3 times a week now, shorter check-ins, but sometimes we even do our one-on-one like pieces there, just because it's nice for each other or people to hear what each other are doing, because they're not getting it the way they used to.
Yep, I love that. And I will also just add to that, ask them. Like you said, Chris, your team said, hi, my name's Kishshana, and I would like shorter meetings. And I have team members who are like, I would like to meet for 15 minutes at the end of every night. And then in the morning time before you start. Like they just are like, so folks are naming how they need their time. And so then I need to govern myself accordingly. If I know I'm going to be having meetings every morning to start my day with my team, that means I need to make sure that I'm getting enough rest and getting up early enough so that I'm in my day and mentally ready to start, because you're giving differently of yourself when you're both a manager and you need to produce for your organization, clients, etc. So I love that.
And then I saw the question in the chat room, just for folks who are watching later, I want to make sure that y'all know as well, you can get Kishshana's new book at heyimnewhere.com.
That's it.
Thanks everybody for joining today. It was so great talking to you.